What up, YouTube? Seymour LO6, you guys. How you guys doing today? What happened to this interview explains the search. Explaining the search. If you guys new, like and subscribe. If you guys have been here, thank you, appreciate it. And yeah, man, this is the highly requested interview, which I haven't. Which I got to do another interview that I need to get through. Don't forget what part I'm on. I gotta go back and see what part I'm on. But yeah, let's hop into this.
So here you go.
Spanky's Corner.
A podcast! It's Julia hanging backstage, lollapalooza with NF. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So congrats on all the success with Time and this search. It's been really fun to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
How's it feel now?
I'm guessing this is the audio. I couldn't find the actual interview. This is all I could find, but I don't know. But we're here for it.
That it's like out in the world.
Doesn't feel like it is for
Yeah.
some weird reason. I think this is the first record where I really felt like that. I think every other record I've been like, oh, my album, it's out.
Yeah.
And this one, I don't know, it just feels like, doesn't feel real yet. Usually once I start touring or doing interviews like this, I'm like, oh, wow.
Now I'm talking about it.
Yeah, that thing that I worked on for like every day for the past, whatever it was, 4 or 5 months or whatever. So
When did you start writing it?
I kind of start writing, well, after Perception, I toured so much. That was my first time, like, not having tons of time just because I was touring so much.
Because you did the Perception tour and then you went right with Logic, right?
I did the Perception tour, and then I think I went to Europe. Then I did the Logic tour, and then I did another U.S. run after that. So I think we did like 140 dates or something. I could be wrong, but somewhere around there. And so writing's one of my favorite things to do, but I honestly didn't have a lot done. But I think I had a few things going, and then really I like dove into the record like January, but I just felt a lot of pressure because it was like, hey, I want to get the record done by this time so I could get it done this time. And most of my
January
other records,
of this year?
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
20 songs on it. That's
Yeah.
a lot of work.
No, we had,
busy.
I'm trying to remember which ones we kind of already had. We may have had some, but I definitely, most of the record was done
Okay.
those 3 months. But one of my best friends, he lives, around where I live. And so we were just every day getting in, trying to work. But I did feel the most pressure I've ever felt on a record on this one.
So I was going to ask, like, how do you say done? Because I know you just write and you write. Like, was it because of time, like
Ooh,
having to get
that's
it
a good
out?
question.
Mostly for me, I know I'm done, or I decide to be done when it's like I feel like I've checked off the boxes of like, I want this style of song or whatever. Because, like if you listen to my records, there's like, it's all over the place. There's like a song that was very melodic and there's a chorus people could sing to, and then there's a song that's kind of weird and it's kind of like hip-hop, but it's also like got big cinematic sounds in it, you know what I mean? And so I just always want to check off certain boxes for my fans and for me personally of like, hey, this is the style I like, and I want to have this on there and this on there and this on there. So this one was just interesting. I kept making songs, but I was like, oh, I still haven't checked this box off, but I still like this song that
Yeah.
I made. And so that's kind of how I think it ended up having a lot more songs on it.
Yeah, you said it was all over the place. I mean, sonically, yes, because you try and you do different things,
Yeah.
which is great. But I think this album is so cohesive. I mean, the way you started it, you got the interlude right in the middle, and I think
Yeah.
like the theme ties so much throughout.
Yeah.
When did you decide that the search was going to be kind of like the overhead for this? Like, do you pick like the theme you want to kind of go after first, or does it just happen in your writing?
I usually try to come up with like an idea for what I want the album to be, and this is actually something that's kind of cool and dope for me. Is like it always ends up, or at least to this point, it always all kind of connects
Yeah.
at the end, and I really think it does because I'm just talking about my life, and so it's like it just kind of happens because that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so I try to come up with like a title and like the idea of like, hey, where am I at in my life? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how like the search came about. Is like I think we're all, not to be corny, but on like a journey.
So what, did he have 2 albums, right? Do he have 2 albums out? Let me know if he have 2. I think he have 2 albums. I know he got a mixtape.
In life, and so
What is the
Shopping for
mixtape
a
anyway?
new look,
What the
an
mixtape
adventure,
called? Have
or
I even
something
listened
sweet
to it?
to
Have I dove into
make
it?
earning reward.
What's it called?
it's kind of like where my journey is. And it's one of the struggles I had for this record was after Perception. I was like, man, I want to make a record that's like so encouraging and like motivating for people. And I went through like the darkest time of my whole life.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a conflict that I had in my head and stuff, because I was like, I feel like I'm making another sad record. But it's like, well, that's how you feel, you know? And so that was a struggle for me, but at the end, I think the product was exactly the end. You know, the end product I thought was exactly what it
I
should have
think
been.
it was encouraging because you're not. You mentioned going to therapy and it, you know,
Yeah.
and like that things, and you're not going to get there without you know
Yeah.
talking about the stuff you went through first. Which
Yeah. No, I think the end product was good. I think just going into the record, I was like, I want to do this. And it's interesting because my music's always been so personal. It just wasn't like a realistic thing. I realized I was like, I'm not going to be able to write a song about this when I'm not there mentally or whatever. And just like I said, I felt so much pressure from this record just because my last record was like the first time I feel like, you know, millions and millions of people actually heard what I was doing.
yeah,
So coming to this, I was like, oh man, it's a lot to, I don't know. I have this thing where I always try to be like, I think like the worst could happen. And I try to convince myself it probably will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to tell myself, oh, if I convince myself of that, it won't hurt as bad if it does.
I do that too.
But it's not a realistic thing, but I still do it all the time. So that's something I'm trying to be. I'm not a very positive person, so I'm trying to figure out how to do that. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that you've ever written and you're like, this is too personal to put on the album? Because, I mean,
she got some
everything
good
you
answers.
say is just kind of out there and as is. Like, have you ever had to hold back?
Not very often, I don't feel like. If
Yeah.
there's something I don't want to say, I think I most of the time just don't
You
say
just
it.
don't write it?
Or the interesting thing is sometimes you'll write something and you'll think about it different when you get older. You know what I mean? Like when I was 23 or 24 years old, like I look at life so different. Like when I think about my mom, I'm not saying I would have wrote the song different about my mom passing or whatever, but like I look at that situation different because I'm 28 years old now, and I don't just think about me. I think about like what did my mom go through growing up,
Oh, yeah.
and like all those kind of things, because I look at my experiences growing up, how they've shaped me, and it's just like now I kind of look at people, maybe not in the moment as much, but I don't know if it's therapy or what, but I'm able to step back now more and be like, I wonder what's happened to that person or whatever, or like, you know,
What?
there's usually like there's deeper rooted things for like everyone. The
Definitely.
things they do. You
Well,
know?
and I would say, because I'm also 28, like this part of our life is by far the most changing
Okay,
going through your
yeah.
20s, because there's no way you could be the same person you were in your early
Yeah,
20s.
the way I thought my early 20s is like not the same.
Yeah.
Like I've always been a super closed-minded person, and I still am in a lot of areas, but I do think about things a little like broader now, where I'm like, I wonder about this or what about that, or you know what I mean?
That's
like,
good. That's growth.
Yeah.
What made you decide on like the art for the album with the balloons, and like where was that shot actually? Because the background of that, and
Yeah.
I believe it's in, I forget which music video.
The Search, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, we shot that in Iceland. I actually had never been there, and I wanted to do something that was, I think every other project was kind of like a studio cover, except for Mansion, but it still was like a lot of like, we built the sky and everything.
Yeah.
So the therapy session was in the studio with a desk and me sitting across from myself, and then Perception was me in the studio with the cell and me in it. So I was like, I wanted to do something that was kind of like bigger looking, you know? And so, yeah, so I was like, we shipped my cell, that's my actual cell, in the background. And we shot the video there too, so the cover and the first single match, you know, they look the same.
Yeah, and I know like you think like every element through
Oh,
it has to
yeah,
mean something.
yeah.
What does the shopping cart symbolize?
The shopping cart's just like the like thing that's I'm pushing around to carry my burdens or whatever, you know. The black balloons are really, like I just said, they're like burdens, but not just that, just like fears and doubts or whatever. And it's
Yeah,
just
that's
that
what's
idea of like these things that hover over us. You know, sometimes we have more, sometimes we have less. And it's just trying to figure out how to not allow those things to like control my everyday life, because they definitely do.
Yeah.
But the struggle I'm at in life right now is like, I feel like if I let those things go, that I'll be like losing a part of me, which sounds like terrible because a lot of times it could be like negative. People would define it as like a negative thing, but sometimes I look at my fears and my doubts and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, but they help me
Create.
maneuver this area, or they help me like because I'm fearful, I'm more protective of myself, so I get hurt less, so I don't want to be less fearful. It's like a very twisted thing, and so that's kind of like, that's all part of the story. You know?
Are you ever fearful that, like, you won't be able to create as much if that happens too? Because, like, I mean, it's just so genius and relatable and well-written, and, you know what I mean? And it's all based off of what you went through.
I think, like I said in my song Change, actually, I am addicted to, like, pain. Like, I'm addicted to this way of thinking because since I was a kid, I think I, like, trained my mind to be like, hey, be careful of this because this happened at one point, or be careful of this.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like, every once in a while, I'll think about that, but not that often, honestly. Like, I do think about my work ethic, I think, changing, where I get concerned, where I'm like, man, if I'm not, like, fearful about losing my career, I'm not going to work as hard. If I'm not, like, worried about people screwing me over, am I going to, like, get screwed over? Am I a weaker person if I don't stick up for myself and freak out on someone? Like, that's a big thing I learned about myself, is when I get embarrassed, I snap on people. And I've always been, like, a pretty angry, like, person. Like, if you say something to me I don't like, I'll just say whatever to you. But that was, like, one thing I realized about myself. Not always. Not always because I'm embarrassed. Sometimes I just don't like you, or I don't like what...
At the end of the day, you guys, he's human. He's a human being, man. Like, he's a human being, like all of us. Like, that's because he get the success and money or whatever. He's still a human being, you know.
You said.
Y'all go
but I did realize that about myself, where it's like, usually, that's like getting to the root of things, where you're like, man, if you're an angry person, like, what makes you angry, or why are you getting angry? And that's one thing I figured out about me, is like, oh, when I'm embarrassed, I respond with anger so I can cover up the fact that I'm embarrassed, because feeling embarrassed feels more vulnerable.
Oh, definitely.
Being angry.
Definitely,
So that's just like one thing that I've learned.
That's really smart of you, though, to connect the two feelings and realize where that comes from. Like, that's very, like, emotionally intelligent.
Sometimes it's annoying, though, because
very intelligent. He identifies his anger and why he get angry and stuff like that. Like, yeah, he's very smart. And
I feel like I'm finding out all this stuff about myself.
And you're always evaluating it?
Yeah, but I also still don't know how to, like, fix it, because my brain's just reacting in that moment sometimes. Like, it's not like something, I get embarrassed by something, and then all of a sudden I'm like, here, let me think about this for a second. It's usually like an instant, my body and my mind reacts, I gotta defend myself. And so then after I think about it, I'm like, oh, maybe I did this. But in the moment, I struggle to, like...
I mean, that's just something you work through, which I'm sure you're doing.
Yeah, I know.
So you mentioned The Change. I love that song. I love the production on it. Everything about it. When do you bring the production in when you're writing? Is it like, do you kind of hear it as you're going, or is it an after thing, or do they send you like a beat first?
I go in with my friend Tommy Prophet. He actually produces a lot of my stuff, and I go in and we usually make the beats together, and then I'll take the beats home and write them, or write them in the studio, and that's how I prefer to do it usually, because beats always kind of lead my mind to like a place. The moment I hear it, I'll be like, oh, this makes me feel this way, or think about this, and then start writing. You know? Some beats are harder, where like I Miss the Days, that song with the choir and everything. That song took me a long time to write, because I just could not figure out what I wanted to say and stuff like that. So it was like, some songs are quicker, some songs, like The Search, that's one of my favorite songs I've ever written, but it took me a long time.
How do you determine when, like, the flow in it? Like, when you want to pick it up, or, like, I mean, because you do, like we said, just such different variations in each song. Like, how do you decide what goes where?
Like, you mean in one song, or you mean the whole record, how the record flows?
Well, I was going to say one song, but both, to be honest.
I can just tell when, like, something's going on too long.
Okay,
like,
and you should
or
just
I'll
pick
be
it
like,
up.
this doesn't feel right, the beat's not building quick enough, or I need to be rapping different here because it sounds like I did the same thing for too long, or I'm usually pretty good at, like, feeling that out. But as far as the records, we live in, like, a world now where I feel like records are kind of becoming, like, a thing of the past, where it's, like, more about singles. Like, people are putting out records, but it's more like, but I just don't live there. I'm like, I love making albums, and I like the album cover and the music videos and that, like, everything to, like, flow as much as possible.
But that's what your fans are there for, and I liked that in the one song you mentioned, you know, that they're pressing you to post on social media more, and you know what I mean, and you're trying to resist that. And I think it's great that, I mean, you do keep off as much as you can and you do your own thing and people are still there for you and you're still seeing the success that you are.
Yeah. No, and leave me alone when I kind of talk about that. It's like the things that bother me about this industry, I also like sometimes because I like that not everyone knows who I am, but kind of a lot of people do know who I am, or that I can go to a city and sell out a show, but I could also grab a burger down the street and, like, no one in there would even know who I was, or, like, you know. Like, I like that, so that's definitely a fear of mine of, like, losing that. And that's why I kind of talk about fame on this record a little bit, about feeling like this fame character, whatever you want to call it, is, like, reaching towards me, like, hey, come on, let's do this, and I'm kind of like, I don't know.
I think it was so cool. Like, it kind of felt like a bridge from Perception, and then you did No Name for the last tour, and that No Name kind of felt like a bridge to this album because it, like, connected you talking about all the success from Let You Down going into that.
Yeah.
Are you gonna...
Why came out after that, and then we put that on the record. So, yeah, it all connects. Sometimes I look back after, and I'm like, man, it's crazy how it actually all connected.
All right, my bad. Sorry about that. We finna keep on continue to this. It's getting good.
Yeah, why I came out after that, and then we put that on the record. So, yeah, it all connects. Sometimes I look back after, and I'm like, man, it's crazy how it actually all connected. But like I was saying earlier, it's like, I think because I am writing about my feelings and things, it's like,
how can I
that's
not?
what's happening. So it's kind of like, you know.
What do you have planned for tour? I mean, I know you're a production guy and you like putting on details and everything. Like last tour, you had the cage. What are we talking about?
I'm not sure yet, but if I did know, I probably wouldn't tell you. That's
fair.
I'm just being honest.
I know, I get it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just want to put on a good show for my fans and just put on the best show I can. And I got like a really good team of people, so we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay, one last question because they're asking me to wrap up. But you say ruminating. Was that on purpose to put your name in it?
No. Ruminating, you can Google what ruminating
I know
means.
what it means,
okay.
but I heard it, and you're so clever in some of your stuff. Like, in that one video when you wrote the date of time coming out, I was like, I don't know, he might be kind of throwing us a pun there.
Ruminating is exactly what it is. It's just the looping of like...
Your name's in it.
Yeah.
Well, always a pleasure to talk to you.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for the interview.
For sure.
Spanky's Corner.
A podcast!
Wow, man, that was super dope, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that video, that little interview we just popped into. Super dope. Highly requested video. And even though during this pandemic, corona, stuff like that, I bet you 100% he's cooking up something. I know he's cooking up something. I know he probably got a whole different mindset because he got a kid and a wife and all that stuff. So he's going to be cooking up something. You know, he's going to be talking about his kid, his wife, all that stuff going to be in. Watch, mark my words. We already know he's going to be talking about all that stuff. And I know he's cooking up something. He just got off a tour. I don't know if he's still doing it, but yeah. But yeah, man, hope you guys enjoyed this, man. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And let me know what else you guys want me to check out. Some more NF or any other things you guys like. See you guys. Adios.